Absolute Green Lantern issue 4, Al Ewing writing with JAHNOY LINDSAY on the art. So we're getting to some answers kind of in this issue. This has been kind of getting a bit more exciting with each passing issue as well, as we'll be getting a clearer picture of what's going on. It's been kind of teasing stuff. I mean, hell, even this first page, which is like, okay, we thought the Hal Jordan stuff was Black Hand related, and I think it still is, but then you have this orange bleeding in and saying that, inside the circle is a Black Star, so now we're doing Black Star stuff. And I'm like...
The Dark Stars, and we also get a Weaponers of Quard a reference, which in mainline continuity, that's who gave Sinestro the first yellow ring. They're from the antimatter universe, so there's some big things there. There's a lot. Al Ewing is throwing a lot out in this issue, but it's very exciting because they're like little breadcrumbs for us to follow.
It's making a lot of this stuff feel a lot more kind of have a bit more mystique than it does in the main universe, which is kind of interesting. So. Joe and Hal are having their kind of confrontation. Hal kind of acts out at her when she's questioning him, and he kind of forms like a suit around him, which is pretty gnarly. He's got like red eyes in it, but is mostly this black kind of muscle mass. But we flash back, as we've been doing throughout this whole arc. We've been flashing back to what happened in the town, and we find out that most of the town's gone. Like Joe and Hal were two of the last few people left. And he obviously had his plan at the end of the last issue with the gold bullets to maybe take out Abin Sur. So they've got a plan where she's going to come out and distract him, and Hal might get a shot off. Surprising to them, though, and completely changing the way things happen here, is that when she calls out Abin Sur and he comes down to talk to her, she demands to know why he's killed everyone, why he's killed almost 3,000 people that live in this town. And he gets very confused and says, "Kill them all. I do not understand what you mean." And this is sort of the first breadcrumb of like, wait a minute, all this like this disappearing people thing might not be what we thought it was in the first place. And we kind of speculated that we didn't think John Stewart was already dead.
Yep.
I mean, I hoped it for Guy, obviously, but
of course you did.
That's
of course you did. Because when he says, when Abin Sur starts talking, he says, "Yeah, but the guy on the motorcycle, but that had to do with the force field. That was an oopsie. He's the only one that's actually dead." And you're just like, oh, shoot. All right, so where'd they all go?
There was a second one. There was the one the bullet ricocheted and killed that woman.
Yes.
So there was a second one that was, again, not really Abin Sur's fault directly. So during this, you're thinking, oh, is Hal still going to take the shot and cause all the problems? Is that because he doesn't hear what's happening? But Joe's going to understand that Abin Sur's not killed anyone yet. However, that's not actually how it goes down. What happens is that Joe accidentally kills Abin Sur, which is kind of wild. So basically, Abin Sur reveals that everyone who's disappeared exists on Oa, the Omega Alpha. They're in the second stage, and Judgment's still in progress, which obviously she doesn't quite understand. And hell, even we don't understand, because is Oa even a planet in this context? It doesn't sound like it.
It still seems very sinister. He says they're the Alpha Omega, and that's just like, or the Omega Alpha, which means that, to me, that makes it sound like it's an in-between, almost like a purgatory. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But I don't know. That's felt like it was taking a turn where maybe whatever Abin Sur's doing is not inherently bad. It was the vibe I was getting. So I wasn't getting sinister from what he was saying here. This felt like it was turning a corner. But of course... Abin Sur ultimately is going to leave, right? He says fear Quard, right, for one thing, right, which obviously is, like you say, tying into the old Silver Age origin of Sinestro and how he, because back in the day, in the Silver Age, like there was like just characters from Quard who would be villains in Green Lantern from the Antimatter universe, and then like you say, they kind of fit that in with Sinestro's Yellow Lantern origin by them helping him sort of like make that a thing. So that's an interesting name drop, if nothing else. But, he says, you now have understanding, Judgment's in progress. And she's like, no, what do you mean be without fear? What the hell are you talking about? And as he's teleporting away with his Green Lantern light, she reaches her hand out to grab him into the light. However, she doesn't think about the fact that she's wearing a gold wedding ring. And seemingly, this causes a disastrous effect, which just... I don't know, completely obliterates him. I don't even know what to call it. He kind of he's clearly in pain, and he sort of lands and sort of says chaotic action anomaly, and he's sort of freaking out. But he's lost control of the ship. Although let's not gloss over the 2-page layout, where seemingly a lot of things around the universe are reacting to whatever the shockwave is that she's caused. Couple of standouts. There's an eye, which might be Sinestro. Is that, am I reading that right? Because there's a sort of red skin.
Yeah, he looks like a Korrigan. Whoever it is looks like a Korrigarian.
Yeah.
So I thought the same thing.
We also have, is that Tumar Ray?
Yeah.
Or one of his kind, at the very least.
Yeah. Azudarian, but it looks like a different kind of energy. It looks like that the red orangish one that you were talking about that was bleeding in at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, or maybe.
So what does that mean?
Or maybe something else entirely. It's hard to say. But it feels like the shockwaves of what Joe's just done is rippling throughout all these things, or at the very least, these are all the things that are kind of in Abin Sur's head that he's worried about now that he's not going to be able to continue whatever he was doing his mission.
It looks like she soul punched him almost, right? It's almost like it's knocking through like these ripples through reality, like you're saying. Maybe it is the thoughts on his mind, but it definitely feels like these are ripple effects that have now come from her breaking through that barrier, right, and actually being able to touch him.
Yeah, and she's surrounded by the green light when after this happens. It's almost like she's taking it from him in some way, even if by accident, which is still a pretty big difference from the whole Abin Sur handing the power over because he realizes he's dying. But the big tragedy that happens here, and it's not as bad as it could be because they've already established that the town's basically empty, but the big Green Lantern ship that was hovering above just falls down onto the town and destroys and crushes a huge chunk of it. So it's better than it could have been because it could have been populated. Yeah, but still.
But it's still this big spaceship that crashed into their town in rural Nevada.
Yeah.
So which I love as the whole Area 51 and being a local here. All the fact that now there is a spaceship that has crashed in Nevada. They give me quite a chuckle.
Yeah, and we kind of go to a woman on a plane, and I was thinking, was this Carol? Are we interested in Carol somehow? And it's not. This is the assistant. I mean, I suppose it could still turn out to be Carol because hey, it's
we don't got a name, but she is wearing violet, dark hair. She checks some of the boxes.
It was the dark hair that was making me think. But this is the assistant to another character, and this is going to be a big reveal because they do all the close-up panels of the hands, of the feet stepping off the helicopter. But the big reveal here is that billionaire Hector Hammond comes stepping off the chopper to investigate this crash site. Crash site is what I was trying to say.
Crash site, yeah.
Yes. And it's okay, he's looking very dapper. He's clearly very successful here. He feels a bit different to what we typically think Hector Hammond of.
This dude is dressed in gaudy amounts of gold. And everything around him is gold, and that's going to be a problem for the green energy. That's all that like you said, the panels are doing that reveal thing where we're getting a little piece, but it's also showing off amounts of yellow and gold. Dude, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I think this is more just his ego is going to be happenstance that it's the weakness to the greens. Yep. However, there is always the possibility that he somehow already knows about them and he's decked out in gold because he knows this is their weakness.
No, I just think he's that gaudy person that
that's why
gold with success. But the fact that Ewing and JAHNOY LINDSAY are highlighting the amount of gold that he's wearing, I just think it's going to be this is the worst possible person to show up for all of this type of stuff. It's someone that loves gold.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I'm definitely excited to eventually get to whatever Sinestro's going to be in this universe, but it's kind of fun to get to someone like him first up. I mean, is this technically the end of the first arc? This is issue 4, so I think there's maybe one more, perhaps.
Yeah, this does feel not like a cliffhanger, but like an end piece. All right, we're now we have, because Joe's still dealing with Hal and his Black Hand, Dark Star, whatever we're calling it.
We're still doing that, and I can still buy that there's more flashbacks right after the ship crashes as well. I can see there being more after that, so I think maybe there's probably at least one more continuing this current like format of going backwards and forwards.
And also this whole process of the Green Lanterns, you know, coming over, taking these people, weighing them for judgment, and then like, do they return them? Is this just part of the process? Is this how they find the person, right, that is meant to hold the green? And now Jo, because of her, because of what she did, now the power has been thrusted upon her, you know, in a way, which will make her.
That last part's definitely true either way. I think the most obvious interpretation of what this judgment is for is deciding a new Green Lantern. However, I feel like in some ways that's almost so simple that maybe that's just the only thing we can guess, because it's the only thing that kind of fits in our understanding of what Green Lantern normally is. It could be something that we couldn't even possibly like predict or think about, you know? Maybe they're building an ark because they know the universe is coming to an end, so they're trying to save enough humans from Earth to keep us going, kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, because this is Darkseid's universe too. So like, if the people of Oa are onto the whole Great Darkness, then maybe that's their thing. They're trying to find the worthy, you know, that are worth the arc, and that's why what she did was this chaotic action and is an anomaly. It was something that they didn't take, you know, didn't think through. Because this is very much Green Lantern meets kind of Arrival, the Denis Villeneuve movie. So
a little bit,
you know. So, you know, really enjoying this one. Like that Soul Punch panel with all those little, like, I'm gonna call them Easter eggs, right? With the Zudarian, which what looks like Sinestro.
I would go a step further and say they're teases. I don't think these are just Easter eggs or just by like, oh, we want to just kind of. Like, I think these are all things that they're planning to get to in the course of the story.
That's a better phrase. What you do, like teases. That's a much better word for it than an Easter egg. But it's this book. I mean, it's still Green Lantern, but it's just different enough where I'm still so intrigued by where this, like, not where it goes, right? Because we kind of have that feeling, but how much Ewing is tweaking Green Lantern mythos and it's still working. You know, this concept of the core and, you know, the yellow light and the dark stars, all this other stuff. Like I'm wondering if we're ever going to get Manhunters and what that's going to be like. You know, because imagine like they had the Manhunters that ran this system, but they had the same problem. They were too mechanical, too logical. And that's why now the Abin Sur is doing it in this weird hybridization of it, you know?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, but I do really think that this issue and last issue really, like, I mean, I enjoyed the first two, but I think this one and last one have really kind of felt like it's came together, and like we've got a bit more of a solid footing, and we're kind of like trying to now theorize about how that this version of the Lantern mythos is going to work, how the spectrum is going to work, as you know, because I assume the other colors are going to exist, like the other. You know, whether or not they're Lantern cores yet, or they're something a little bit different, but I'm
wondering, because the symbol for the Green Lanterns in this it's that ring of light. So I'm wondering if how the Green Lanterns is that, you know, green is the easiest for them to touch into, but if they kind of have that power and like the opposite side of the spectrum, the red, the orange, the yellow, that kind of the Dark Star can kind of get in there, right? And that's what we're kind of seeing as it bleeds through. You know, like it's all one power source, right? But it's what they're choosing to tap into. That's what makes it the spectrum.
I mean, it's impossible to predict how they're going to treat it rules-wise in this universe, so I'm not even going to start to speculate. I just don't. There's no footing yet to even start, so I'm not even going to. But I'm excited to find out what they're doing with it and like how they start to tease maybe some of the other spectrum energy coming in, and I mean. I don't know. That's me. I don't know if I've got anything else to add. So, no, good stuff. I think the big payoff to... I think the idea that we just assumed that Hal did something bad because he's currently the one attached to something that's making him do bad things. I don't think any of us predicted that Joe's the one who accidentally did something bad. So that's kind of a neat twist. And then also just this big climactic moment where the ship falls out the sky. It feels big, it feels epic. You know, they do those 3 vertical panels of it falling out the sky to give you the sense of the trajectory going down. And then obviously the big 2-page spread of the actual blast. And I love that the blast itself almost looks like the top half of a Green Lantern symbol. It's got, you know, the dome, and then there's like a ring above it that makes it look like the line at the top. Like, very intentional design there, I feel like. So Really good stuff. And then, of course, the green of the ship really stands out against the orange desert on that next page when you see it in the broad daylight. So, yeah, no, solid, great book. Having a good time. Excited to see where we go next with it. Matt, what are you giving Absolute Green Lantern?
I'm going to give it a straight 8.
I'm going to give 8.5. I'm going to give 8.5.
Right.
Had a good time.